So to connect something further that we didn't share yesterday, in the natural, if you were looking at the ancient wedding and how they handled it, and this is why I think, let's tie it into, Rick, the dream that you had in Crestone about having one more year. When the betrothal period would take place, there's actually key evidence that when Ishu went and turned water into wine, that was his actual betrothal time to Mary Magdalene. That's another topic for another day that upsets the apple cart, but that was his betrothal party of him coming out and being engaged to Mary Magdalene. Of course, the church wouldn't want us to know those things, but that's, like I said, a discussion for another day. But in that time period, technically what would happen is that the couple would be separated for a time, for a year or two. The groom would be going and adding an additional space to his father's house, where he then would bring his bride into this newly constructed place that was added on to his father's house, and it would take time for him to build it. Meanwhile, the bride would be getting herself ready. She would be making her gown. She would be doing her garments of what it would take to hand sew a wedding dress. She was getting herself ready to be able to change the status, leave one house and move into the other. I'm saying this because the ketubah, if this means writing, the writing's using the letters being that which is written for the bride's protection, aka salvation, then what are we doing when we study the sacred languages? If it's an inside job, we are making our wedding garments from the inside out. Because when I broke down the wise and foolish virgins, I don't know, gosh, that was a year, maybe even longer ago, maybe even 2 years now. I actually went through the whole wise and foolish virgins. We saw that the lamp and whatnot, it actually was talking about garments of light. I was super excited when I saw that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's garments of light, and I freaked out sharing it because of the significance of what we're talking about here. If we're talking about light and fire, and Ken just shared with you that verse that talked about light and fire, and we're talking about that the line designates light and the circle is fire, and this is phi, this is completion. What are we talking about here? So the ketubah, grasping, the kaf is a hand that grasps, and it means power. The hand that is grasping the power that is of the ark, tuv, those who have turned, and that's what leads us down over here. And this word in the center of it means conversion. I asked Ken this morning, I said, because the Spirit had given me, I said, what does a converter do? I'm not very savvy when it comes to electricity and all those kind of things. And I know there's converters that change forms of energy so they can be utilized. But it was like the Spirit was saying, there is a conversion takes place as a converter to take us from one status to another. And as the bride is getting herself ready to be changed in status to move into the Father's house, we are talking about the level of intimacy. So what are we talking about here? As we're studying the writings, it is our wedding ketubah that gets us ready to enter into the place of intimacy. What is intimacy? Getting into the Father's house. What is the Father's house? Dealing with your shadow. This is where you intimately get to know yourself. And this is where the union takes place of Lila and Hallel, when you deal with your shadow and you keep coaxing that feminine energy to come back home so that the wedding can take place right here within the heart, uniting the two as one. So the process of getting there to have the intimacy of those two energies is through the writings. So that the box, the chest of where our heart is, we don't have to have it so contained and protected anymore. They are both entering into the chest. They're, play on words. They're entering into the chest, aka the place of the heart, where then in that holy of holies, they can have sacred union as one.